2006, Justin Bieber headlined Coachella as the highest-paid act in the festival's history. $10 million, 90 minutes, 34 songs. Streamed globally on YouTube. His catalog nearly tripled in streams overnight. Baby, a 16-year-old song, returned to the Hot 100. 7 albums charted on the Billboard 200 simultaneously. A career high. The internet was calling it Bieberchella, and it felt like a genuine resurrection. But here's what made that moment mean something beyond the numbers. Because between that Coachella stage and the peak of his powers, there were years of things going quietly, then loudly wrong. Disease. Financial collapse. A $31 million fallout with a man who built him, selling his entire music catalog just to stay afloat. His wife receiving death threats. Photos that scared his own fans. The internet filing him under a category that very few artists ever escape from. This is the real story. Part 1. What he was. To understand the weight of what happened, you have to understand what Justin Bieber was at his peak. He wasn't just successful, he was the blueprint. Discovered on YouTube at 12 years old, debut album straight to #1. By 2015, Purpose was selling 649,000 copies in its first week. Sorry, what do you mean? Love Yourself. One after another, completely inescapable. 121 career Hot 100 entries, the 10th most of any artist in history. The youngest soloist ever to achieve 8 #1 albums in the United States. He didn't just dominate pop music, he defined what a modern pop star could be. Every digital era breakout that followed, they were all building on the foundation he laid. Then slowly, almost invisibly, the walls started closing in. Part 2. The illness nobody saw coming. In June 2022, in the middle of his Justice World Tour, Justin Bieber posted a video to Instagram. Half of his face wasn't moving. He had been diagnosed with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, a rare neurological disorder caused by a shingles virus attacking the facial nerve near the ear. One eye couldn't blink, one side of his mouth couldn't smile, his nostril wouldn't move. He showed it all on camera, full paralysis on one side of his face. He tried to push through, flew to Europe, did 6 more shows, performed at Rock in Rio in Brazil, gave everything he had. Then he walked off stage and his body gave out. After getting off stage, the exhaustion overtook me, he wrote. I realized I need to make my health the priority right now. The tour, which had already been delayed once by COVID, was cancelled. All remaining 70 shows across South America, Asia, Australia, and Europe. Gone. The internet's reaction was split. Some sympathized. Others were brutal. The memes came quickly. And quietly, the narrative around Bieber started shifting from superstar to question mark. Part 3. The financial fallout. Here's where things got complicated in ways the public didn't fully understand at the time. The Justice World Tour had been backed by a $40 million advance from concert promoter AEG. When Bieber canceled, he owed $24 million back. He didn't have it. His longtime manager Scooter Braun, who had discovered him on YouTube when he was 12, who had been at his side for 15 years, had his company HYB step in and cover the debt. Bieber agreed to repay it in installments over 10 years. He made one payment, then stopped. Behind the scenes, the relationship between Bieber and Braun was deteriorating. An audit revealed Bieber believed Braun had overpaid himself $26 million in commissions over the years. The trust was completely gone. In August 2023, after 15 years together, Bieber fired Scooter Braun. He also fired his agency CAA, replaced his longtime lawyer, restructured his entire team. It was a full dismantling of the machine that had run his career since he was a child. And then, in December 2022, reportedly against the advice of his own accountants who warned him to wait for a tax break in January, Bieber sold his entire music catalog, 291 songs. Everything recorded before 2021, sold to Hypnosis Songs Capital for $200 million. Baby, sorry, Love Yourself. What do you mean? All of it, no longer his. The sale was described by those close to him as necessary to pay off mounting debts following the tour collapse. Reports later emerged that his wife Hailey had, at points, become the primary earner in their household. The settlement with Braun was eventually reached in July 2025, $31.5 million total. $26 million for the tour advance. $5.5 million in unpaid commissions. One of music's greatest partnerships ended in a multi-million-dollar legal reckoning. Part 4. The War Online. While all of this was happening behind closed doors, a completely different kind of chaos was playing out in public, and this one had his wife's name on it. Justin Bieber's love life had always been one of the most watched storylines in pop culture. His years-long on-and-off relationship with Selena Gomez had made them one of the most talked-about couples of their generation. When they split for the final time in 2018 and Bieber proposed to Hailey Baldwin just 2 months later, The internet never fully moved on from it. A corner of the online world stayed stuck in that story, and they made sure Hailey never forgot it. By early 2023, it had gone far beyond fan arguments in comment sections. People on the internet were sending Hailey Bieber death threats, coordinated harassment, relentless, daily attacks. It had been building for months, and it wasn't stopping. It got so severe that Selena Gomez herself stepped in. She posted publicly to her hundreds of millions of followers, revealing that Hailey had reached out to her directly because the harassment had become that dangerous. Selena was clear. This wasn't what she stood for. She called for it to stop. She said no one deserved to be treated that way. It was a remarkable moment. The woman the internet had cast as the wronged party publicly defending the woman they decided was the villain. But it spoke to how out of control things had gotten. Hailey opened up about what the period had cost her emotionally. She said that since 2023 began, she had experienced some of the saddest and hardest moments of her entire adult life. That her mind and emotions had been fragile in ways she'd never experienced before. And Justin was watching all of it. His body was recovering from a neurological disease. His finances were in freefall. His 15-year partnership with his manager was ending in a legal dispute. And simultaneously, his wife was being threatened by strangers on the internet while he could do nothing to fully protect her from it. Sources close to the couple said it broke his heart to watch her go through it. This was the full picture of what 2022 and 2023 actually looked like for Justin Bieber, not just a star dealing with health problems, a man watching every pillar of his life shake at the same time. Part 5: The Physical Deterioration. Then came the photos. Through 2024 and into early 2025, paparazzi images of Bieber started circulating that genuinely alarmed people who had followed his career for years. Gaunt, pale, dark circles under his eyes, changed in ways that were hard to pin down but impossible to ignore. A video from a road pop-up event in Los Angeles in February 2025, where he'd come to support Hailey, went viral. Fans dissected every second of it. His body language, his eyes behind his sunglasses, the way he was standing. Comment sections filled, and nights of late-night recording sessions that had left him running on no sleep. His representative stated clearly he was not using drugs. But the internet had already made up its mind. And once that narrative takes hold, especially for someone with Bieber's history, it is nearly impossible to shake without action. Part 6: The Perception Collapse. Here's what's important to understand about this entire period. Justin Bieber did not disappear. He was still posting, still occasionally visible, still attached to Hailey's world of fashion and celebrity. But the framing had completely changed. Where once every Bieber news story was about dominance, chart records, sold-out tours, cultural moments, now every story was a welfare check. Is he okay? What happened to him? He used to be the biggest artist in the world. The internet had filed him under a category that very few artists ever escape from. Not villain, not forgotten, something harder to recover from than either of those. Concern. When an artist becomes the subject of concern, their output stops being evaluated on its own terms. Every interview gets analyzed for clues. Every photo becomes evidence. Every public appearance becomes a test he has to pass. The music becomes secondary to the question of whether the person making it is even okay. That is not a place any artist can create freely from. And it showed. He had survived teen idol status. He had survived the tabloid years and the arrests and the public meltdowns of his early 20s. He had rebuilt himself spiritually, creatively, personally. He had fallen in love, gotten married, made music that genuinely mattered. And now he was here, 30 years old, his face paralyzed by a virus, his catalog sold to pay his debts, his manager gone after 15 years, his wife harassed to the point of receiving death threats, and the internet watching his every move through a lens of pity and suspicion. This was the lowest point, and almost nobody fully understood how low it actually was. Part 7: The Rebuild. In July 2025, two things happened on the same day. Bieber dropped Swag, his first album in years, self-produced, released with minimal warning, and news broke that he had settled his financial dispute with Scooter Braun for $31.5 million. The chapter was closing, a new one was opening. Swag didn't arrive like a typical Bieber rollout. There was no massive promotional campaign, no stadium tour announcement, no attempt to manufacture a moment. It was just music, and the music landed. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. Singles Daisies and Yukon hit the Hot 100 and stayed. Yukon spent 40 weeks on the chart. Slowly, quietly, the streaming numbers started rebuilding. He wasn't back at the peak, but he was in the conversation again, on his own terms, making music he still owned. Music that still financially benefited him. It was a small but significant detail. After selling the catalog that defined his career, Swag represented something he couldn't put a price on. A body of work that belonged entirely to him. Part 8, Coachella and the Full Circle. April 11, 2026, Empire Polo Club, Indio, California. Justin Bieber walked onto the Coachella stage for the first time as a headliner, the highest paid act in the festival's history. 90 minutes, 34 songs. He performed mostly from Swag, the music he still owns, the music that still financially benefits him. But mid-set he turned back the clock. The old songs, the ones he sold, the ones a generation grew up with. Baby. Love Your Baby returned to the Hot 100. 7 albums on the Billboard 200 simultaneously. 32 million streams in a single day. His biggest he never chose. Who had to sell the songs that defined a generation just to pay his debts. Who watched his wife endure a harassment campaign so severe that the very woman the internet was doing it in the name of had to publicly stand up and tell people to stop. Who endured one of the most prolonged public welfare check periods any artist has faced in modern memory, with his own past used against him at every turn. And then quietly, without fanfare, put it back together. The Coachella headline wasn't a comeback. It was a proof of concept. That the kid who got discovered on YouTube at 12 years old, who survived teen idol status, mental health crises, a 15-year partnership imploding in court, a disease that paralyzed half his face, and an internet that had already written his eulogy, still had more story left to tell.